welcome to the most must-hear podcast in the world. Welcome to the Raw K Nection. And we got a show tonight for you. Raw apparently has a new theme song. It's Enemies by Shinedown. It sounds pretty familiar to me, especially because I used to use it for my Total Extreme Wrestling Dynasty. You can still find that intro video on this channel. Now that we have the daily plagiarism out of the way, onto the show. The first segment is an announcement from Mick and Stephanie that they are introducing a new belt. It's the WWE Universal Championship. Not very keen on the name myself, but at least it's going to be something new. At least it ain't bringing back the big gold World Heavyweight title. They announced that there's going to be 2 Fatal 4-Way matches, and the winner of those face off in the main event of tonight. The winner of that main event will go on to SummerSlam to face Seth Rollins to determine the new champion. Also, we're going to have a women's title match tonight, Charlotte going up against Sasha Banks. It appears Raw is trying to go after Riggs early, which is a change because they seem to be allergic to them for a couple months. The first match of the evening is first of the 2 Fatal 4-Ways. It's competitors of Antonio Cesaro, Kevin Owens, Rusev, and Finn Balor. This did a really good job of opening the show. The crowd was pretty much into it, and the match was very open. Each wrestler got most of their moves in. It ended up being the debuting Finn Balor getting the win here, and he's going to be the guy going on to tonight's main event for the shot at the #1 contendership. The match itself was pretty much a high spot fest, but it was a pretty good opener. I give it a C+. The next match was a very quick squash match that will probably take me longer to talk about than when it actually occurred. It was Nia Jax versus a jobber named Britt Baker. I find it odd that the crowd was dead silent for Nia since she was shown on NXT television for about a year. If you ever seen Nia before, she's definitely different looking compared to the rest of the women's roster. I think it's smart booking to keep her matches very short and dominant until the crowd gets used to her. Honestly, I don't see how they're not, but the match served its purpose, so I'm going to go ahead and just give it a D- just because the crowd was so dead. The next segment starts off with the Golden Truth aiming a cell phone at Sasha Banks. Just when Sasha is appearing to be offended by this, they tell her that they're just playing Pokemon Go. Go figure. They walk off camera attempting to catch a Pikachu after that. I guess it was, light humor. Then Tom Phillips comes up to interview Sasha Banks. I would like to point out that there is no Tomspiracy happening here, as he is apparently allowed to stand at his full height when he is next to a woman. Shame on you, Vince. Shame on you. Anyway, Sasha does a decent job of hyping the upcoming match with Charlotte. The next match was the second Fatal 4-Way of the evening. It was Chris Jericho versus Sheamus versus Roman Reigns versus Sami Zayn. One thing I noticed is that WWE is still trying to paint that sympathy angle with Roman. Now, the normal person can only sympathize with someone you can relate to, and a person that looks like Roman Reigns is not a person that the average male viewer can relate to, which is what happens to be their WWE audience. WWE, I'm telling you, you need to quit bucking the fans. It just makes for very weird TV when you're constantly trying to have your announcers go against the grain. Don't get me started on those piped-in Roman chants that you just inserted in the middle of the match as well. Now, the match itself was really good. It's nice to see TV matches that mean something and not thrown together just for the sake of doing them. The winner of the match was Roman Reigns. I know, big surprise there. So he would go on to the main event tonight to face Finn Balor. The match gets a C- overall because WWE keeps breaking my immersion with trying to force the false babyface thing down my throat. The next segment was the New Day celebrating their record-long reign as tag team champions. They picked an obviously planted member of the audience to be an honorary member of New Day. Hell, they even made fun of his name so much that the crowd managed to start chanting it. Yeah, the segment ended with the club coming down the ring and beating up New Day, and they started mocking Sonny Boy, the honorary member of New Day, to close the segment out. Okay, this next match couldn't have possibly been more heatless. This is a terrible wrestling crowd because they seem more like a golf crowd than they did than a crowd watching a wrestling match. Honestly, I personally like the competitors in the match. Neville and Kurt Axel, I always took a shine to them. I just couldn't help but feel deflated watching this match. It wasn't that anything in the ring was bad, it was just the crowd was so dead, it just made me dead watching it. Maybe Kevin Dunn should have been piping in some cheers here to get his audience at home awake, because I know I was falling asleep. The action was good, but since the crowd was so composed of crickets, I'm going to have to give this a D minus. And this very next segment was Bob Backlund and a Darren Young promo. Let's just say if you haven't had a piss break now, this would have been the time to go do it. Moving on, the next segment after that was Tom now interviewing Charlotte. Charlotte made some confident declarations about how hard it is to keep the women's championship. Her microphone seemed to cut in and out on her as she was talking, so that was a bit distracting from the promo. Thank God this match was on the card, or there was almost nothing to save this show. Sasha and Charlotte brought this crowd back from the dead. It almost felt like I was watching a Japanese crowd, because they were all silent in the very beginning and the ladies almost had to kill themselves to wake them up. All in all, I thought that was a great slow build match, and the payoff was really good for the boss, as she ends up being your new WWE Women's Champion. I'll give these girls a B minus just for waking this crowd back up. After the match, Byron came into the ring to interview Sasha. She was obviously choked up from the emotion of winning the Women's Championship, and she cut a really heartfelt promo. The crowd was very appreciative and just gave the emotion right back to her. It was a really true feel-good moment for everyone. The next was a very quick squash match between a guy named Ellsworth, I didn't even catch his first name, going against Braun Strowman. Braun threw the tiny guy around the ring and beat him in under a minute. There's not really much to talk about here. The match did its job of making Braun look like a monster. I guess I'll give it a D minus because it made sense, but it didn't really accomplish much. The final match of the night was the main event with Finn Balor going against Roman Reigns for that number one contendership. Honestly, I was a bit annoyed because WWE cut off the beginning of the match during a commercial break. I really hope that someday WWE Network airs Raw and SmackDown on the network so they can stop cutting the matches for commercial breaks. But on to the match itself. The match was back and forth, and the announce team seemed to bill Finn Balor as lucky to be here the entire time kind of guy. It sounded like they were writing him off the whole match, that he wasn't even on Roman's level. Roman definitely worked heel in the match, but the announce team are still forced to talk about him like he's a babyface, which it sounds just as weird now as it did back in the beginning of the program. The wrestling was solid, and the crowd was really happy to see Roman eat the pinfall here. Finn Balor goes on to be your next WWE Universal number one contender. I have to give this match a C. It probably would have scored higher if they didn't cut the beginning of the match out for me. The whole show gets a C. It wasn't a good Raw. It wasn't a bad Raw. It was just a Raw. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button, and I'll see you tomorrow for SmackDown's K Nection.